Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Joe Tyrrell and welcome back to GP Blog. Interlagos has just hosted the third and final Formula 1 sprint of 2021, and it's fair to say all three have received mixed reviews. We're going to break down what happened at each sprint race, weigh up the positives and negatives, give our potential solutions, and most importantly, we'll rank each one as well. So sprint races were introduced at Silverstone and was contested over 17 laps in Britain. Hamilton lost out at the start with Verstappen overtaking him into first place, and although we saw a thrilling first lap with plenty of movement in terms of places, Fernando Alonso for example, he went from P11 to 5th on the opening lap. It eventually became a procession though, and in my opinion it fell a bit flat. F1 acknowledged this and emphasised that the 3 sprints in 2021 were focused on getting the reactions of the audience. At Monza, Valtteri Bottas qualified on pole and kept it, storming to a whopping 3 points, and although he won the sprint, he would eventually face a grid penalty for the race itself, which gave Max Verstappen pole position. My issue with the race becoming a procession was reaffirmed at the Italian Grand Prix, with the top 8 not changing places after the opening lap, meaning there was a severe lack of action in the top 10, which is ultimately what the fans care about. The drivers had plenty to say too. Sergio Perez criticised it, calling it boring, whilst Fernando Alonso suggested single lap qualifying could be used to set the grid for the sprint. This method was last used in 2005, and yesterday's sprint race was probably the best of the lot. However, it was slightly in the shadow of A, the title race, and B, the drama we went through in the 24 hours previous. After qualifying on pole, Hamilton was demoted to the back after being disqualified for a rear wing infringement, but it made for a great spectacle as he went from 20th to 5th in just 24 laps, one of the best drives we've ever seen him pull off. Valtteri Bottas won the race from P2, and it was a fitting way for the final sprint race to end. The positives. Well, it's clear there is one overwhelming positive, and that is the fact that it's something different. Formula 1 has been crying out for innovation. They've tried and failed in the past, but this feels like it has legs. It gives people something to care about. Who gives a toss about FP2? On the subject of irrelevant sessions, I've always thought that the practice sessions give teams too much data to work with. Well, with the sprint, that cuts it down. It adds an extra competitive layer to the weekend, rather than boring practice sessions. It makes every session count. Drivers need to nail FP1 for quali and the sprint, and then they need information from FP2 for the race itself, so it gives value to each session. And finally, it gives the sport a bit of much needed unpredictability. At Silverstone, George Russell got into the top 10 for example. It allows for more variation in the standings. The negatives, well, I've already mentioned it, but after 2 laps it became a bit dull. It was just another 17 to 25 laps for the sake of it. Monza was a prime example. The top 8 didn't change after lap 1. One word for it: boring. Lap 1 and 2 is some of the best racing we've seen this year, but after that it had very little in it. In its current format, it will just become a smaller version of the race on a Sunday, because the grid doesn't really change. So eventually the question will be asked, what's the point? How do we make the F1 sprint better? First of all, and probably the most common suggestion, is we need a reverse grid. It's crying out for it. Make the quicker cars fight through the field. On Friday we have qualifying. This decides Sunday's grid. The reverse of this is the starting grid for the sprint on Saturday. That's just one potential solution. I personally would love it, but I'd love to hear your ideas in the comments as well. Also, why not just give out some more points? If you want to make the teams go for it, make daring overtakes, and provide all action racing, give it some incentive. Next year we'll have 6 of these, and personally, I'm a big fan of that. But if we go to the same places each year, it will be tedious. I'm a huge advocate for a changeable calendar, and the sprint race should be no different. One year let's have one at Silverstone, Paul Ricard, Monza, and the next year why not do one in Miami? You could even do one at Suzuka and then Australia. Let's mix it up. No calendar should ever be the same. And finally, our 2021 sprint race tier list. In last, Monza. It wasn't memorable, and it did the concept no favours at all. In at 2, we'll go with Silverstone. The first lap or 2 were brilliant, but it fell flat after that. And the best till last, by a country mile, was Interlagos. It benefited massively from Hamilton's penalty and the tyre split at the front of the field, but there was action all the way through, and it sets up today's race really nicely. On the whole, sprint races have been a massive positive for me. It provides a different element to the race weekend, and it can really mix things up. It just needs a bit of fine tuning. I really think there's a good product there. That's all from me on sprint races for 2021. Let me know what you think of them in the comments below. Enjoy the Sao Paulo Grand Prix, but from me, I'll catch you next time.